6:45. This is a Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj and read by Lavani Vijayatunga. First, we take a look at the headlines. The President addresses the nation. The Presidential Task Force for COVID-19 Prevention decides to relax the travel restrictions during the weekend. The World Bank applauds the method adopted by Sri Lankan government in the COVID vaccination drive. Although Sri Lanka sees a downward trend in COVID-19 infections, the health authorities warn that there is always a risk of emergence of new clusters in the country. Immigration Department issues notice on issuance of passports. Coronavirus update: 1,843 more patients regain health today. The COVID vaccination drive on employees from garment factories outside Colombo has commenced with the support of Sri Lanka Army. In news overseas, officials say Miami building collapse left 159 missing. And in sports news, Josh Butler ruled out of Sri Lanka white ball series due to calf injury. Those are the headlines, and now move on to the details of the local news. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is addressing the nation at present. The President's media division said it will simultaneously broadcast in all television and radio channels. Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation has made arrangements to air the President's speech live through all services, including the regional services of the SLBC. The Presidential Task Force for COVID-19 Prevention decides to relax the travel restrictions during the weekend. However, the inter-provincial travel restriction will remain in force. The other restrictions are also in force without any change. Meanwhile, the places which have high density of corona patients have been identified and isolated in a systematic manner. There are few such places identified so far and isolated. Public is requested to adhere to the health regulations and quarantine laws during this period. The World Bank applauds the methods adopted by the Sri Lankan government in COVID vaccination drive. The World Bank also commends the procurement approach of Sri Lanka, which showcases transparency and accountability. The World Bank has identified that Sri Lanka is leading in this process when compared to the other South Asian countries. Chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasena, says that Sri Lanka set an example in the systematic vaccination process. Meanwhile, around 1.7 million jabs in the form of Sinopharm, Sinovac and Sputnik V are expected in Sri Lanka during the next 3 months. This was revealed at the meeting of the Presidential Task Force on Prevention of COVID-19 held this morning at the Presidential Secretariat. This is the news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And we continue with more local news. Although Sri Lanka sees a downward trend in COVID-19 infections, the health authorities warn that there is always a risk of emergence of new clusters in the country. Addressing the media, Deputy Director General of Health Services, Dr. Hemantha Herath, said that the dip in active cases was not a yardstick to determine that the cases would continue to fall in the future. He said fluctuations could be seen as in any pandemic situation and added that the country is currently at a crucial juncture. The prevailing declining trend does not mean that the situation is under control. The situation would be dreadful if people act irresponsibly and negligently during the period ahead, he underlined. In such a situation, people have to be more careful and responsible in attending to their daily work. We also urge the people not to go out on picnics or pilgrimages during this period ahead until the authorities announce a controlled situation, Dr. Herath added. The government is easing the lockdown restrictions and people have started thronging markets and public places. Many can be seen in defying health rules, triggering fears that the country could face another serious wave of the pandemic. The Department of Immigration and Immigration in a media release published today stated that the passports will be issued to a limited number of applicants at its head office in Battaramulla, as well as its regional offices in Mathura, Vavuniya, Kandy and Kurunegala. The services will be rendered in compliance with all health protocols set in place by the authorities, the Controller General of Immigration and Immigration added. The department says only the applicants who have essential services requirement should visit the office closest to their place of residence after making an appointment through the contact numbers 070-710-1060 or 070-710-1110 1070 between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on weekdays. Applicants without such reservations will not be allowed to enter the office premises, the Controller General noted. As many as 1,843 more novel coronavirus patients were discharged from medical care within the last 24 hours as they have returned to health, the Ministry of Health says. This brings the total number of recoveries of COVID-19 in the country to 214,668. Sri Lanka has so far reported 248,050 positive cases of COVID-19 and more than 30,600 of them are still being treated at designated hospitals and treatment centers. The death toll from the outbreak of the pandemic meanwhile stands at 2,814. Minister of Foreign Affairs Dinesh Gurumarthana says that the Colombo port will be developed as an international financial hub similar to Singapore, Middle East and Dubai ports. The minister made a formal request to foreign countries to invest in the Colombo port city since there is a huge potential in the designated site. The Colombo and Hambantota ports are being developed as the ports in par with the international standards. The minister made these remarks while addressing an international conference through Zoom technology today. And to conclude the local news, the headlines once again. The President addresses the nation. The Presidential Task Force for COVID-19 Prevention decides to relax travel restrictions during the weekend. The World Bank applauds the methods adopted by the Sri Lankan government in the COVID vaccination drive. Although Sri Lanka sees a downward trend in COVID-19 infections, the health authorities warn that there is always a risk of emergence of new clusters in the country. Immigration Department issues notice on the issuance of passport. Coronavirus update, 1,843 more patients regain health today. The COVID vaccination drive on employees from garment factories outside Colombo has commenced with the support of Sri Lanka Army. And that was the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The main news story for tonight, the COVID vaccination drive on employees from garment factories outside Colombo has commenced with the support of Sri Lanka Army. The process will cover free trade zones which are under the purview of the BOI. In the first phase of the vaccination, it has commenced in Sidawakapura and Koggala zones. Further, employees from the northern province, including Kilinochchi, Bafunia and Mullaitivu, also received the first dose of the vaccine today. Meanwhile, the Kilinochchi Regional Health Services Director, Dr. Nagaratnam Saravanapavan said 3,186 employees of the Kilinochchi garment factory received the Sinopharm vaccine today and yesterday. He said another 1,132 employees in the garment factory would be vaccinated in the next few days. Meanwhile, the COVID vaccination program is being carried out for the employees of the Pudukkudi garment factory in Mullaitivu. Regional epidemiologist in Mullaitivu, Dr. Vijitharan said that 582 people were vaccinated yesterday and another 400 today. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And in Watchlight tonight, the health officials request the public to follow the health guidelines during this period. Although the travel restrictions are relaxed, the interprovincial travel restrictions will be enforced without any change. The public is requested to follow the special guidelines released by the Health Ministry to control the third wave of the corona outbreak. The health officials warned that the further travel restrictions will be determined in future based on the behavior of the general public. With that, we move on to the headlines of the world news. Officials say Miami building collapse left 159 missing. Ramon, house arrest for man seized in Ryania, Belarus drama. Those are the headlines, and now we move on to the details of the world news. The number of people listed missing after the collapse of a 12-story building of the U.S. city of Miami has risen to 159, officials say. 4 people are known to have died. The mayor of Miami said they still have hope of finding the survivors. Search teams working around the clock have reported hearing people banging beneath the debris. What caused the 40-year-old building to collapse early on Thursday morning remains unclear. A Belarusian dissident who was taken off the Ryanair jet forced to land in Minsk has been transferred to house arrest, his father told the BBC. Ramon was taken into custody on suspicion of inciting unrest after his dramatic capture on 23rd May. His girlfriend, Russian citizen Sofia Sepaga, was arrested with him and has also been moved to house arrest, her parents told the BBC Russian service. The EU responded to the plane incident with sanctions on Belarus. And to conclude the world news, the headlines once again. Officials say Miami building collapse left 159 missing. Ramon, house arrest for man seized in Ryanair, Belarus jet drama. That was the world news, and now we move on to development news. Dole Khanda Bridge construction work commenced today. The construction was carried out connecting two Grama Sevak and Iladaris areas, which are considered as difficult areas in the Nagoda Division Secretariat of the Galle district. A bridge construction on the canal along the Gingaga also commenced. A sum of 4 million rupees has been allocated for this purpose. That was the development news, and now we move on to sports news. And in cricket, Jos Buttler has been ruled out of the rest of England's white ball series with Sri Lanka. Buttler sustained a calf injury in Wednesday's first T20I and will now return home to commence his rehabilitation. Butler, England's vice-captain and wicket-keeper, scored an unbeaten 68 opening the batting in the first T20I. According to ECB, he felt tightness and discomfort at the end of the game and was sent for an MRI scan on Thursday morning, which revealed a small tear. He sat on the second T20I, which England won by 5 wickets. The third T20 match between Sri Lanka and England will be played tomorrow, the 26th of June 2021. The match will commence at 7 p.m. Sri Lanka time. That was the sports news. Business news coming up.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
In business news, Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC recorded its best ever financial year despite severe challenges rising from COVID-19 global pandemic through the year, achieving a growth of 34% in profit before tax over the previous year to record 2.67 billion rupees, while profit after tax rose as much as 43% over the preceding year to reach 2.2 billion rupees. That was economic news, and that was the business news, and economic news follows.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And in economic news, the Hambantota International Port Group signed a joint venture agreement with Shenzhen Xinxi Group to set up a plug-and-play park-in-park manufacturing facility with the port's industrial zone. The concept is a fully fledged standalone industrial facility with some very unique features set to operate within the Hambantota International Port's industrial zone. The $16 million high-tech industrial facility will provide one-stop shop services for light industries. The new facility will be built on a 9,000 square meter area within the industrial zone, and the park-in-park model will be attractive to investors as it would reduce investment costs. That was economic news, and the weather report to conclude.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, the weather report. The Met Department says showers will occur at several places in the western Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Galle, Mathura, Kandy and Nuwara area districts. Showers or thunder showers will occur at very few places in the eastern Nuwara provinces in the evening or night. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published this evening at 7:30 p.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. Meanwhile, the International Weather Forecast website AccuWeather.com predicts that the Colombo weather would be generally cloudy. There will be light showers in many places in the Colombo district in the night. Today's temperature will be around 29 degrees Celsius and there will be scattered showers in selected spots later in the night. The ground temperature would be 29 degrees Celsius at the time of this news broadcast. The Air Quality Index AQI is 27, which shows fair condition in Colombo. The air quality is generally acceptable for most individuals. However, sensitive groups may experience minor and moderate symptoms from long-term exposure. And that was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And before we conclude this bulletin of news, let's get back to the headlines once again. The President addresses the nation. The Presidential Task Force for COVID-19 Prevention decides to relax the travel restrictions during the weekend. The World Bank applauds the methods adopted by the Sri Lankan government in the COVID vaccination drive. Although Sri Lanka sees a downward trend in COVID-19 infections, the health authorities warn that there is always a risk of emergence of new clusters in the country. Immigration Department issues notice on the issuance of passports. Coronavirus update, 1,843 more patients regain health today. The COVID vaccination drive on employees from garment factories outside Colombo has commenced with the support of Sri Lanka Army. Officials say Miami building collapse left 159 missing. And in sports news, Joe Butler ruled out of Sri Lanka's white ball series due to calf injury. And with that, we conclude this bulletin of news.